Welcome to the Ashford Teaching and Learning Conference. My name is Catherine Myers, and I will be your host for this session. I'm excited to introduce Increasing Social Presence and Decreasing Transactional Distance through Digital Media in eCollege, presented by Stacy Manning, who is a Faculty Support and Development Associate at Ashford University. The chat window will be closed during this session for your questions and comments, but we will open it at the end of the presentation for a short Q&A at the close. Now, without further ado, Stacy Manning.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Well, good morning and welcome to day 2 of the Ashford University TLC. I hope that you've all been attending some wonderful sessions and gaining some new insights to incorporate into your classrooms as well. Let me start by thanking you all for attending this session. I know for some of you it's a little early in the morning for sessions, but I appreciate that. I do see that we have quite a few folks here in the presentation room, which is wonderful. Some of you I have worked with in my role as a Faculty Support and Development Associate. And others, I recognize your names, and I may have only worked with you in my role as an associate faculty member. That brings us to one of the first points that I want to make before we get going on the presentation. What I'm presenting to you today is based on tips and tricks and observations that I've made in my own classes as an associate faculty member. So like many of you, I teach as an associate faculty member part-time, mainly nights and weekends like most of you. I've been teaching for 12 years in both the traditional brick and mortar and online here at Ashford. I teach primarily in the College of Liberal Arts history courses, as well as now the Division of General Education, where I teach the U.S. History Survey course as well as entry point. So, in this presentation, we will look at engagement and retention strategies that help increase digital presence or a real sense of human connection and personal interactions to help move learning forward for students in the classroom. As Catherine said, we did close the chat during the presentation because we are going to have a question and answer session at the end. And what I would respectfully ask is that as we go along, if you would please jot down any comments, concerns, questions that you have, that would be wonderful, because I'm truly hoping that we could just have a one-on-one conversation with 32 participants and myself, a really lively and robust conversation in the question and answer section. So jot down those questions and we will get to them in a few minutes. So let's go ahead and get started. So what is social presence, right? According to some of the scholarly research done by Garrison et al., social presence is characterized by interactions between instructors and students, both individually and collectively, that exemplify interpersonal and effective emotional connections. In subsequent research, they found that interaction among online course participants usually initiates some level of collaboration whereby participants show awareness of each other's presence and being related in a group. So it's basically that interconnectedness, that sense of unity and feeling that they are part of a learning community that students in the online environment can truly experience. It's that community and inquiry of learning that we all strive for. This leads us to the definition of transactional distance as researched and defined by Shin. Transactional or digital distance embodies social presence insofar as the ability represents access to others through responsive interpersonal relationships. Okay? So Shin is sort of the expert on this, but our own Dr. Andrew Sheen yesterday at his TLC presentation really gave us what I think of as honestly just a better definition of transactional distance. He's basically saying that it's our ability to transmit ourselves as the instructor into the online environment in such a way that students feel a real human connection, right, i.e. digital presence. We use technology as the fulcrum to move that learning forward. We encompass, or we surround our students with our own presence inside the classroom to give that true feeling, so students truly feel our authentic presence and engagement on a very personal and human level. So what does that all mean, right? Why does that matter? Okay. Well, the reason that this matters is that we can, as instructors, we can do something literally as small, or what could be perceived as possibly insignificant, as inserting a photo of ourselves into the introduction and discussion form responses. So as you see on the slide, you can see my face, and hopefully you can envision my face with the words on the screen. And students do the same thing. When I'm actively engaging them in the classroom, they see a real human being on the screen with them, and that I'm in that moment with them. It enhances a true human connection. It does so because students can see my personality, right? They can see and feel and hear my experience, my expertise, my compassion, right? That I authentically want to know them, and I care about what they are responding to in the classroom. They can see my authentic self, and they're empowered to share who they are. The outcome of this can be more actively engaged students. Students may begin more actively participating in robust and meaningful content-driven discourse, right? So a little less fluff. Now, some of the reasons, right, that I'm respectfully offering for your consideration to do this, right, the why you should do it, is because it can truly bring a human element to the class. Students literally see their instructor. They're reminded that we are indeed actual human beings, right, just like they are. We're not a computer screen for a head and a body, right? We're not zombies, just like they aren't. We're all human beings, real people with real lives. Incorporating my photo, I believe, often encourages more meaningful student engagement in the forum. It models the academic culture that we all hope that our students and ourselves strive for. When we model academic culture, when we show what collegiality is, it can result in possible increases in the quality of our student responses and their academic success. Now, I understand this is putting my photograph in my discussion forum responses. It's only one factor, right? It's not the begin-all, end-all of retention and student satisfaction, but it is one step, and it can make a truly profound impact on students in your individual classes, right? It's not a higher level idea that is instituted or incorporated at the college or university level. This is what I can do individually as an instructor, where I have empowerment to control what I can control in my own classes. So when we use the strategy of incorporating the photograph as well as other targeted specific retention strategies, it can be quite beneficial. The other reason you should do it, at least in my opinion, is that it literally takes a mere seconds. I said on the slide it takes less than 15 seconds. Honestly, it's more like 2 seconds. So it's absolutely worth your ROI, right? Your return on your time investment to at least give it a shot, right? It's literally only a few seconds, and if it can make the difference for even one student, two students, three students, it's definitely worth trying out. Now, the goal of this presentation, of course, is for you to consider incorporating the use of your photograph in your interaction with students in the introduction and discussion forums. However, like I said, it alone isn't the only factor that can increase student satisfaction, student success, and retention. Very briefly, just to give you some context, I'm going to talk about 6 specific targeted scaffolding strategies that I've used in the past. I'm going to talk about those briefly just because I do think that it's the combination of inserting the photograph and these other strategies that can be most effective. So the first strategy that I want to briefly discuss is crafting strategic, individualized, scenario-based, content-driven responses. Now, I understand the vast majority of us, we already do this stuff. But sometimes I don't think we intentionally focus on it or think about it or put it in a sequence or an order that can be most effective. So if we do that, that's another way that we can really help increase that engagement with our students and have some positive outcomes as well. Incorporation of media, right? Strategic use of media is very important. What am I talking about? I'm talking about infographics or videos or articles or additional photographs, media that enhances and supplements the content for that week. When I use it, I want it to be used intentionally. I want it to add something for the student so that it has meaning and value. I just don't want to randomly post things that might be somewhat related but not directly related. I'm also very careful about how I use media in my classroom. I think it can be an absolutely powerful tool for students, but it's sort of like Uncle Ben said to Spider-Man, right? With great power comes great responsibility. You really have to use the media strategically. You don't want to overuse it. It should supplement my response to the student, but it shouldn't act as my actual response to the student. Another strategy that I use is I engage substantively and authentically with students early and often. Honestly, I do it as soon as I possibly can. If the course starts on Tuesday, but students are posting their introductions on Saturday before the course starts, I'm right in there. I'm already actively engaging and connecting with those students. If a discussion forum is due on Thursday, but students have posted on Tuesday or Wednesday, and there's any way that I can get in and start responding, I start doing it. And again, that early engagement with students really has had a positive outcome for the students and for myself. You know, it eases my time management if I can get in there earlier in the week as well. The next strategy that I use is sending meaningful and proactive early outreach via both personal direct email and within the feedback section in the grade book itself. You know, sometimes I might email a student and say, you know, hey, Fred, Sally had a wonderful post in this week's discussion, and it's very similar to what you were discussing. Please feel free to jump into her post and engage in the conversation with us there. So I empower, I mean, I don't require it, but I empower and I invite the students to do it. And in the vast majority of cases, they actually do. And it's content-driven, and it's innovative, and it's exciting. They enjoy it. And I think that has definite positive outcomes for all students in the course. Another strategy that I use is easing up on the enforcement of my introduction and discussion form late policy. Now, I'll admit, early on in my career, I come from a traditional brick and mortar background, and I had that paradigm or that school of thought that part of my responsibility as an instructor was to teach responsibility, to engage students and guide them in a way in which they fully meet all of the academic criteria within the specific due dates listed. And as I progressed in my own career and grew professionally, I really started thinking about who our students really are, right? The majority of our students, especially in the online modality here at Ashford University, they're working adults. They have full-time jobs, sometimes full-time and part-time jobs. They're going to school full-time. They have kids, right? And then I started thinking about my role as an associate faculty member, right? I go to work. I at my full-time job, which I absolutely love, but it can be demanding sometimes. It's a long day. I have an hour and a half commute, and I go home and I sit down to put on my teacher hat, and sometimes I'm just tired. Right? I'm tired, I've got dinner to cook, I've got my nieces and nephews around, and it can't be different for our students. They have to feel the same way. So honestly, is the world going to end? Is my student going to get a job someday and be 20 minutes late for work and it's going to be the end of their career? Probably not. Right? Is the world going to end if my student submits their discussion forum response on Friday instead of Thursday? Probably not. So for me personally, I've eased back on the enforcement of my late policy in the discussion forum. I still have one, but in weeks 1 and 2 specifically, I try to use it as a learning opportunity for the students. I'll email and provide feedback, letting the student know that, hey, I understand it might have been a tough week. I noticed you were late. I want to help set you up for success. So for this week, I'm going to make a one-time exception for you, and I'm going to either waive or reduce the late deduction, and we'll move forward from that. When I have done that, in the vast majority of cases, students are much more likely to be on time in the subsequent weeks. I'm also connecting to them as a human being, and they appreciate it. They value that I understand who they are as a person and the challenges that they have in their lives. All right, so I got off on a little bit of a tangent there, of course. That leads us to the next strategy that I used, which was sending that meaningful and proactive early outreach. It's very similar to when I invite or empower students to participate in a specific discussion chain, or I'm reaching out to them to let them know that I've made an exception for them on the late policy. I'm trying to help set them up for success. I'll also send early and proactive outreach if I notice they haven't contacted me and they're missing in action. They just haven't shown up in the class. They haven't posted at all. I'll use the FSE or the Faculty Student Engagement Report to help me with that if I haven't necessarily noticed it. Usually I notice it myself because I'm actively engaged in the class. So I reach out to those students. Hey, the introduction was due yesterday. Just wanted to let you know I'm very happy to work with you. If something's going on, please let me know. If you can get your introduction posted by tomorrow night, I'll gladly accept it. Yes, some of that stuff takes time, but it's absolutely worth it in the end. And in the majority of cases, students do respond and they actively engage. All right. So you may be asking yourself, right? Okay, Stace, this sounds all great, but what evidence do you have, right? What proof? How do we know that this is impacting students, right? Well, I asked myself the same question, right? Oh, I'm sorry, let me back up. The 6 strategies that I used, I did, well, maybe not as briefly as I wanted to, but I did briefly go over those. If you want to know more about those, in 2016, in March, Ashford University's Division of General Education will be conducting their first ever virtual General Education Matters Symposium. At that conference or symposium, there'll be another presentation that really focuses or drills down fairly deeply into the different retention strategies. I think it's going to be a wonderful conference with a lot of very useful information that's more detailed into the retention piece and the retention strategy piece. So if you're interested in that, please join us at the GEM Symposium in 2016. So back to my anecdotal evidence, right? How do I know these strategies work? How do I know posting my photographs in my responses to students and the introductions and the discussions even made a difference? How do I know that? Okay. Well, I did some research on my own, right? So I tested it. I looked at my courses in 2004. I looked at 2 of my courses in 2014, in which I did not incorporate any of these strategies. Yeah, I responded to emails. I communicated. I reached out, but I didn't do it. I didn't utilize all of the tools in my belt, right, in my toolbox. I sort of just went with the flow. And on average, I had a realistic retention rate in my classes. In 2015, in my January and February courses, though, I implemented the use of my photograph as well as the other 6 retention strategies. And I want you to really focus on that part of the slide that's highlighted in yellow. You guys, when I utilize all of those strategies, when I truly immerse myself as a human being on a one-on-one basis in the actual classroom with the students, the retention in those classes skyrocketed, right? Some of those classes, it's almost a 20% increase, right? It's almost unheard of, right? Now, granted, I understand there's all kinds of different variables that could have impacted this, right? But still, the increases are significant, especially when I know that I intentionally implemented targeted strategies for retention with the goal of increased student learning outcomes and retention. So I was pretty happy with that. But I really wanted to focus on, okay, but what about this digital presence thing? What about putting my face into the classroom? Does that alone have an impact? If you look at my April 2015 course, and that course, that was the main strategy I used, was just including my photograph in the introduction and discussion forum responses. Even in that class, retention jumped 10%. So I know for me personally, it was an effective strategy. I know from my students, based on the feedback that they provided in the introductions and discussion forums, that it was effective for them. They provided comments that said, I feel so much more at ease. I feel more confident. I feel connected. I didn't think that I was going to really get to know my classmates or my instructors, and I can see from day one, I already have that. For me, that was transformational. It was truly, a light bulb moment for me, and I sort of kicked myself for not doing it 10 years earlier. Right? So just think, right? If we're seeing even half of these outcomes, right? So let's just say that we can increase retention 5% in our individual classes, right? if we just say 1 or 2 or 3 students who are at high risk, which many of our general education courses are high risk for students dropping, if we could just say even 1 or 2 or 3 students, right? Think about that. If I can personally retain 3 students in each of the 7 classes that I teach a year, that's 21 students. 21 students who are going to have a higher likelihood of persisting through graduation, right? 21 students who hopefully will walk across the stage and earn their diploma. 21 students who will have a solid general education foundation to go out into the world and be contributing members of their families and their societies. They're going to get jobs, right? That's 21 students who might not have had that opportunity. Realistically, right, that's the most important. But realistically, we're also a for-profit institution. 21 students is over $27,000 that one instructor can help retain, right? Me as an associate faculty member, I love teaching, but it certainly is part of my livelihood. You know, I need to teach. I love to teach. I want to teach, but I need to teach. If I can implement strategies that help to retain students and they're more successful and it helps to increase revenue, that certainly isn't going to hurt my chances of having continued course offerings. Okay? So let's just look at a couple of examples of what putting your photograph in your discussion responses or introduction responses can look like. So these are from a couple of my recent courses. And again, I use a very small blog-style icon. I started it in the left-hand corner so that when students first pop into the class, they see me in my response, right? I acknowledge the student. I validate what they wrote about. I share my instructional expertise and insight. I engage in discourse. In this particular instance, the student was discussing her feelings about becoming an early childhood education instructor. And it reminded me of a recent video where I believe this gentleman teaches at the high school level, and somebody at a party literally asked him, "How much money do you make?" And his response was absolutely wonderful. You know, and he talks about making future leaders, and so anyway, it was directly applicable, it was inspirational, and it definitely fit into what the student was discussing about in her introduction. So I went ahead and I embedded it, and I asked her and any other students to take a quick look at it's less than 2 minutes long, to look at the video and engage in some discourse. That chain within the classroom exploded. I might have had 6 or 7 responses to responses to responses, and 2 or 3 students actively engaging in that conversation. They were engaging in critical thinking. They were engaging in actual discourse, which is always exciting for us to see as educators. In the second example that I want to show you, I again started my response with the small blog-style icon of myself, right, to put that human face with the words on the screen. I welcomed and acknowledged and validated the student. But in this particular case, I didn't want to throw up another video, but this particular student was talking about their particular program of study and how they wish they knew a little bit more about it. So I directed the student and invited them to look at the program details on the Ashford website. But instead of just saying, hey, go check out the Ashford website, I directly embedded a link that says, click here. So the student just needs to click on it, and it immediately takes them to the video provided by Dr. Cervantes about that student's specific program of study. So those are our ways that I strategically utilize my photograph so they see my words on the page, and how I strategically use media to enhance that experience. Now, the actual process of adding my photo to the discussion and introduction responses, it literally takes maybe 20, 30 minutes to create, and most of it is creating a photobucket.com account. You only have to do it one time. It's free. It was easy to do. Why do you need to use PhotoBucket? Why can't you just go to Facebook or Instagram or some other online site? And I learned this the hard way. The reason that you can't use just general media that's housed online is because of security purposes. Most of those companies will periodically do security updates. When they do, the embed code switches or changes. So if I had gone to Facebook, used a photograph, put it in my class, and 2 weeks later Facebook did a security update, the link would break in my class. Students would just see a grayed out area where the photo would have been. So obviously it loses that power and that effectiveness. So a company like photobucket.com, they're specifically designed, the service that they provide is that once you upload your media there, the embed codes or the links will not change. That's the reason why you want to use that. Now, once you have your photo saved on PhotoBucket, you will literally just use the embed media feature in eCollege to do so. So you're probably tired of just looking at screens and listening to me yammer on. So instead of just telling you how to do it, let's just take a few minutes and I'll show you what it looks like and how I do it. Now, don't worry about writing down notes. Please remember this session is being recorded, including the live demonstration that I'm going to provide to you right now. When you first sit down in your own classrooms, start hopefully incorporating the use of your photo in the introduction and discussion responses, feel free to reach out to me, right? My email address is stacy.manning@ashford.edu. I'm very happy to walk you through it step by step. I can talk you through it. It literally is not going to take you much time at all. It's easy to do. I can help you with it. Any of the FSDAs can assist you with that. Even eCollege Tech Support can assist you with it. So let me just take a second here and switch to screen share.
Stacy, I find myself listening to you and nodding my head and jotting down notes like, oh, I can't wait to use that in my class. So this is just wonderful information to share with the group, and I really look forward to the chat box and kind of reading everyone's comments and questions here. I imagine you will have a lot.
Right. So again, folks, I'm really sorry that we couldn't do the live screen share to show you how to do it, but you do have the general gist. It's literally cut and paste. You only have to do it that very first time. Once you're in your classroom, it's literally cut, paste, cut, paste. It takes less than 2 seconds. So now that we are back to the presentation, I hope that you've jotted down some questions and comments, and like Catherine said, I would like to open the session right now to any questions and comments that you have. Catherine, can you maybe help me with that?
You got it. Well, already Celeste Campbell just said that you've made it so easy, and she's ready to try this now for herself.
Great. Wonderful, Celeste. Thank you so much. Actually, I should mention that Dr. Campbell actually was one of my influences. When I first really started thinking about social presence and transactional distance, it was at a webinar that Drs. Campbell and Lisa Marie Johnson did, in which they included their photograph on their slides as they transitioned from one speaker to the next. I always hated being at webinars where I didn't know who was talking. And it was something that they incorporated in the College of Education. It was meaningful for me. I definitely felt more connected to the content that was being covered, and I certainly felt more connected to both Drs. Johnson and Campbell. So shout out to you, Celeste, for getting my creative juices flowing.
Woohoo, Celeste!
Right. Let's see. Well, you know, you're right, Celeste. It is a collaboration. Just as our students collaborate and learn from each other, we certainly do as professionals and as educators as well. You know, we want to have that community of learning for our students in the classroom, but the thing about it is we have a community of learning amongst ourselves as professionals. We certainly have that on an individual basis, and now we have the TLC, so at least once a year, we can really connect on that professional level as well. So great, wonderful.
And I see a lot of different people are typing in their questions right now, which is great. Felicia Banks just thanks you again, Stacy, for sharing this.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that, Felicia. You know, this is something that I've developed, and it works for me. Yes, I truly want you to at least give the photograph a try. Yes, I want you all to join us in 2016 for the General Education Symposium when we talk more about the specific retention strategies. But you're all going to find your own groove and what works for you and what you feel comfortable and what works for your students. So again, it's a trial and error thing, but it's definitely worth a shot.
Okay,
Rita.
Oh, you see her perfect. I wanted to let you know that Reese's question's in there, and then we also have a question from Cliff Keenan.
Rita, yes, PhotoBucket is free. I am an educator, and I am cheap. So if it's not free, I'm not using it. It will house about 50 different pieces of media. If you want the bells and whistles, you can pay a subscription. If you want more than that, I mean, I've been using it for about a year now, and I don't have any problems at all with it. I just, you know, I probably have 25 different pieces of media. I have my photo. I have infographics and videos and some of that stuff that I use often within my classes, and I store it there. So it's free and easy. Cindy has a question.
Actually, I'm going to go back up to Cliff first. Cliff was up.
I'm sorry?
Cliff Keenan, he wants to know if you use YouTube as a repository for videos to point students to, or are there other sites that you use?
I have used YouTube in the past, and what I do, Cliff, is I drop and drag. Whatever video that I want to use, I just take it and I dump it into my PhotoBucket account, and then it's always there, and I don't have to worry about the YouTube embed code breaking. Personally, I try not to use videos in discussion forum responses or intro responses that are longer than 2 minutes in length. I just think that more than that is just too much for students, and it can be overwhelming. So I drop them into PhotoBucket, and I, instead of them providing a link to YouTube, I just literally embed it directly right into my response using the embed media feature in eCollege itself.
Wonderful. And then Cindy wants to know, Cindy Combs would like to know if you've had students ask if they can include their photo.
Yeah, wonderful question, Cindy. Actually, in my introductions, and actually it was an idea that Debbie Halewood used in her classes, and I really loved it. She invites and empowers students to share their photos. I do the same thing in the introductions, but I'm modeling that for students by including my photo. and I just linked the student job aid that literally shows the students in 4 clicks or less how to embed their picture. And students love, love, love it. You know, I include the reminder that it should be a professional photo and all of that stuff. But I would say maybe in a class of 30 in the introductions, I might have 5 or 7 that actually include their photo. And it's wonderful. Even those who don't do it, they're also saying they feel more connected. They feel more at ease. They feel like they know their classmates and their instructors. So not all students are going to put their photos in, but some do. And I have noticed that many do, that many have. Let's see, what's the...
Cliff has just a follow-up question. Is the photo next to your discussion response something that you have to set each time?
No, I create my photo bucket account. I created it one time, and then I put it in my class. Once I'm in my actual discussion, I don't have to go back to photo bucket. I don't have to do anything else. I go to the first discussion response where I provided the photo for the student. I cut and paste it into each of the following student responses. So it's literally 2 seconds, cut, paste. I don't have to go outside of the classroom. I do it that one time, Cliff, and then from there I can just keep reusing that same photo. Quick and easy, easy peasy, chicken sneezy. Let's see, wonderful ideas. Melody says she's looking forward to trying it. Cliff asks, we can't have it set as a default setting. We can, and I'll be honest with you, Cliff, there is an option in eCollege that could set that for us. It would cost the university money. So as time goes by, if more instructors use it, if they find similar findings like I did, where it does have a positive impact on student learning, student satisfaction, retention, then maybe we could use that as rationale to, you know, hopefully have that as a future feature in eCollege. But for right now, you would have to do the real quick cut and paste from one response to another of the photograph.
We have about 2 minutes left for questions, so I see a few people are still typing in, which is great. Just wanted to let you know our question time.
Kathleen Kelly, she said that if for full-time faculty who have an Ashford-issued computer, photo bucket may be blocked. That's from our internal site, WebSense. All you have to do is call tech support, put in a help ticket, and they can unblock that for you. Joyce has a quick question. If your photo is placed under instructor profile with a voiceover introduction, why post your photo? Okay. Yeah, that's a good question, Joyce. Personally, I haven't done a video or an audio link for students within my discussion forum responses. Personally, the reason I haven't done that is, one, I don't know how, and two, I do sometimes worry that students might have technology issues. If I'm going to do an audio, I feel obligated to also do a text version of the talking points to ensure that my courses are ADA compliant, and if a student you know, maybe has a disability and couldn't hear the audio. So for me personally, I haven't necessarily done that. But I definitely see your point. If you're doing 100% audio responses, you know, that could increase your connection with the students as well. So that's something that we would have to think about and look at a little bit more.
Well, unfortunately, our time has come to an end. Stacy, I want to thank you again for your presentation and for all of you for attending. This presentation will be available for viewing in the CEDL soon. We will also send out an email when the live sessions are available. Don't forget to go to the TLC app and rate this session. And you can also use the link in the room for a quick end of session survey. That link is listed below the PowerPoint slide that you are viewing right now. And then we will also be sending just an overall end of conference survey for you to provide more in-depth feedback. But again, thank you to Stacy and thank you to all of our participants. Excellent questions. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and now you can jump over to the next session.